fans only want one thing, and it's so clearly low-angle shots of MASH's bust or butt. You can't convince me otherwise. It's as clear as day. Joking aside, the sequel to the first Camelot film is out, and to put it simply, I didn't have many things, great things to say about in my review for it. That being said, I am glad to report that Camelot 2 not only has lots of MASH's fan service, but is also much better than the first Camelot film. So, let's jump right in. So with the first Camelot film, not gonna lie, I wasn't raving about it. I even said at one point that it should not exist. The reason being is I just thought Camelot 1 was not very good. The animation and visuals were subpar at best, and going into a Fate film, especially coming off Heaven's Feel, there is a very high bar to meet. In my opinion, they didn't even meet the bar. They didn't even try to go under the bar. They misunderstood the game and instead tried to eat the bar just to have Saber make this face and get in a car with me because I claim Saber. She is mine. Also, that film made me dislike Da Vinci. Shame. Though, at least we had Mashu. You can never go wrong with a little bit of MASH in your life, you know what I'm saying? But surprisingly, there is quite a bit to love about this film. I'd say that Camelot 1 wasn't very good, but Camelot 2 is more in line with what I'd expect, and there are some things which even go above and beyond in this film. The biggest example of that is the retelling of Saber's death from the Fate Stay Night visual novel. Of course, if you're not familiar with the story, Bedivere was tasked with throwing Excalibur into the lake, and when he returned, she had passed away and had gone, keeping the sword. This is a hugely important scene to Bedivere's character, as we'll talk about in a moment, but it was fantastic that they were able to see this redone in such high quality. It really feels as if, despite many of the visual issues I have with these sets of films, also something else we'll talk about later, for Camelot 2, they made sure to present certain things as best as they could, and that was one of them. Seeing Arturia up against the tree with her hair down as Bedivere bends the knee to his now fatally injured king. For a king as cruel and unforgiving as Arturia was, you see, for the first time in a Fate anime, may I add, a peaceful and tranquil death. Not being bound by her duties as a king, she's kind of just existing in that moment under the shade of the beating sun with her most loyal knight. Speaking of being most loyal knight, you viewer can be most loyal knight when you can go over onto my Spring account. They changed the name of that, and you can buy some Sabelina merch. Yeah, that's right. If you like Saber, pick up some of this awesome Sabelina merch. Totally has nothing to do with Saber at all, but you could pick it up. You can buy that Sabelina t-shirt. Hey, and if you don't want that t-shirt, buy the sticker. It helps supports the channel, and I'd appreciate it if you did that because it's a cooler way to help me out because you get something in return. Back to the video. Speaking of Bedivere though, his character may be my favorite aspect of this second film for this very reason. I find his motivations in this film finally bears fruit, and him wanting to return Excalibur to her king is something I genuinely wanted to see and get behind. His character in this film is driven to complete his task, and that sense of agency in the story is exactly what the first Camelot film desperately needed but didn't have. This, in turn, makes Camelot 2 immensely better, and without the presence of Bedivere to drive the plot forward, I wouldn't feel as positive as I do about this second film. So when you go to watch it, look out for Bedivere. His character is something to admire. So much like every other Fate Grand Order anime, MASH gets a pretty major spotlight in this film, especially in the first quarter of this film with a battle with Lancelot. I feel like every Fate Grand Order anime, there's always a concerted effort to display MASH in an important role and just display MASH. Usually this is done by giving her a kick-ass introduction, battle, or tender moment with Fujimaru, or generally just one of the other cast members, or all of the above. This time, it's a battle between MASH and Lancelot. While I think the fight with Bedivere at the end conceptually is better, MASH's fight with Lancelot is, in my estimation, the only well-executed fight in these sets of films. For one, the setting and colors is exactly what you'd want. It's a desert setting with yellow, gold, and lots of blues, which really serves to highlight not only MASH's character, but Lancelot's, as their color palettes are kind of the same sorts of hues. The animation is also very weighted, and you can sense the impact of MASH and Lancelot's attacks as they fiercely fight. When you combine this with the awesome VA work from Rie Takahashi and Ryotaro Okiyu as Mash and Lancelot respectfully, you have something which maybe feels more like absolute demonic front Babylonia than, say, Camelot, which, as we'll discuss later in this video, is something they probably should have considered doing more of. Though there, to be fair, is a lot they should consider, which is the mistakes and decisions which ultimately kneecaps and botches, at least from a story perspective, kinda the entire Camelot project. This first one is unnecessary deus ex machina, in particular with Da Vinci. I've never been so down and out on a character than I was with Da Vinci. This is because they made her annoying in this film, which, oh god, I just realized the gravity of the situation and what I just said. How does a writer make Da Vinci annoying to begin with? Well, they killed her off in the first film in the most arbitrary and unnecessary way possible, to the point where I didn't even care about getting emotionally invested in the possible death of one of the most beloved Fate Grand Order characters. This is all because they felt they needed a big moment for the first film, and instead of just cutting out that plot thread entirely to better adapt another scene, or better yet, just completely rewrite this series, they have her show back up in Camelot 2 saying, "Hi, nice reaction." She didn't earn that line. Her fake death sucked because the entire film, the first film sucked. So once again, Da Vinci in Camelot 2 sucks. Somehow. Can't believe I'm saying that. So really, I mean, Camelot 2 suffers from the exact same fate as Camelot 1 does. That being said, it would be redundant to retread all of that when my video of Camelot 1 is still up to view. As for this film, I just feel another one of its big issues is something that Fate Grand Order as a whole suffers from: convoluted terminology and over-designing of the simplest concepts of, or better yet, just creating needlessly convoluted stuff. This is an issue because it makes Fate Grand Order seem more like, I guess, like a cartoon than it does, well, you know, Fate. One of the biggest appeals of Fate is the dark undertones combined with the deep history of its servants and masters. The fights are cool, yeah, but like every single good series with fights, it's the story that makes those fights mean anything to begin with. That's why Fate Zero is so lauded. What Camelot does here is reintroduce really stupid terminology that probably would make Hideo Kojima blush a little, but only a little. Which is funny because in the Babylonia adaptation, they had this same terminology just being spewed out, but it wasn't really an issue at all. And I think that's just because the story surrounding it is really well adapted. You had characters like Mash, Fujimaru, Ushiwakamaru, Gilgamesh, Ishtar, Ereshkigal, and so many other interesting characters and villains with interesting stories to tell. The terminology was dumb, but it was such a small facet in comparison to what we see in Camelot. And I think this shows that that's because it's a symptom of a bigger issue, which is the story being badly paced, leading to it feeling rushed. I mean, Jesus Christ, Ozymandias has a giant pyramid spaceship with a built-in railgun and Nitocris, and that wouldn't seem like such a big deal if the movie as a whole was just better, you know? But also if the damn thing didn't look better than most of the things in this film anyway. So yeah, I mean, let's go ahead and talk about some of the visuals here. This film has a serious case of melty face without the side of French bread. The best example I can conjure up is the climax of Bedivere fighting his way through the Lion King's knights to deliver Excalibur to Arturia to break her from her, well, like brainwashing. We'll discuss in a moment why I think this ending from a story perspective is, well, actually perfect, but wow, there was a lot of off-model moments. I'd say this is all right, but it really looks like the art director and director of Sunny Boy made this final sequence. Not that Sunny Boy's bad or anything. The reason this is such a big deal to me is because I expect Fate anime, especially Fate films, to look a certain way. While I think this fight from a conceptual perspective is actually really damn good, the visuals don't deliver at all and seem rushed and unfinished at best. A lot of the animation just seems really floaty, doesn't have the impact of, let's say, Mash and Lancelot's fight, fight from just earlier in the film, and all around just made me crave for something else from these films. To be honest, I wish this film were just a regular 22 to 26 episode anime series. I think that a lot of these issues would have been alleviated with the right studio and production staff to tackle it. Not that this studio production staff wasn't talented enough to tackle it, but I just remember when I uploaded my first video of Camelot 1 and many people told me my concerns would be rectified with Camelot 2, and I wanted to feel that way. I just don't feel that way. To put it simply, there was just too much story here to be adapted into just 2 films. The reality is that if they wanted to make a good piece of art, they probably needed to rewrite a good portion of this, because this story doesn't seem fit for its purpose as a 2-film series. That being said, I am still happy with the ending itself. That is, after the big fight. It was really satisfying to see Bedivere deliver Excalibur to Arturia and her acknowledge him as her most loyal knight. It was a touching moment and fitting in to Bedivere's story as he dies, and they successfully save another timeline from ruin. Honestly, it would have been really cool if Camelot was just retold in Bedivere's original timeline without the Grand Order stuff. Imagine the story just taking place years after Arturia's death and there are rumors of the Lion King and Arturia showing back up. Just make Bedivere the lone protag and have him fight people and do cool stuff. Not every story needs to have a save the world slant to it. That being said, I love this ending, and even the after credit scene was really good too. Here's the thing, there is a lot to love about Camelot 2. It's without a doubt a decent film and way better than Camelot 1. That being said, for however good this film was, it was equally in some places bad or worse than those moments in others. While many people who've played the mobile game may disagree with me, you must remember that as a standalone experience, which is really what this is meant for from a promotional standpoint, well, it's just not good. If this is what they wanted to promote their anime casino game, they failed a good bit. This just reeks of the source was better, read the source marketing from word of mouth of fans. I wouldn't recommend Camelot 1 or 2 unless you're a diehard Fate fan who will watch everything like myself, and even then, it's not really worth it because you've likely already played its source, which is likely more complete and just better. Here's the thing, Fate fans only want one thing, and it's a good adaptation. Not these subpar or even downright bad adaptations in some cases. Mission failed, we'll get them next time. But you don't have to fail your mission if you check out my other Fate videos here on the left, or you can just check out my Camelot 1 review here on the right. Remember to mash that like button. See you guys later. Bye-bye.